Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today I'm not here to whisper sweet lies. I'm here to speak the unfiltered truth, the truth they don't want you to hear. You wake up, check your phone, scroll through the chaos of the world, but deep down you're looking for one thing: release, reality, relief. And sometimes that comes in the form of, yes, you guessed it, those videos. Now, before you judge, hear me out. I'm not saying you should abandon your job, your family, your goals. No. I'm saying we need to understand why we watch, what it gives us, and how it's shaping the world, whether we admit it or not. So today, we're going to talk about it. Raw, real, no censorship, no shame. Because sometimes the most uncomfortable truths are the ones that free us. People are always quick to judge what they don't understand. They'll shame you, label you, and box you into a definition they created, but never dared to question. And porn, oh, that's the dirtiest word at the dinner table. That's the thing people pretend to hate, but it's built into the algorithm of their midnight cravings. Let's stop lying to ourselves. Speak truth in a world drowning in hypocrisy. Porn is not just about lust. It's not just about clicking a button and seeing skin. It's a reflection of the human condition, raw, unfiltered, and vulnerable. It's the one place where people explore fantasies they'll never dare speak out loud. And what's wrong with that? Why does society shame you for having desires but offer no healthy space to understand or express them? Let me ask you, would you rather have a world where people repress their desires, bottle up their frustrations, and let it explode into toxic behavior? Or a world where there's a pressure valve, a release, a safety zone where people can explore and process emotions they don't fully understand? Porn, for many, is that safety valve. It's not perfect. Nothing is. But it serves a purpose most people are too afraid to admit exists. We are sexual beings. That's not an opinion. That's biology. From the day we hit puberty, we're taught to suppress, deny, hide. Don't look, don't touch, don't feel. But how does that end? With confusion, with shame, with people searching for answers in the dark because no one gave them the light. Porn, for better or worse, is often that first flashlight. It's where people first learn, not from textbooks, not from awkward school talks, but from something they sought out themselves. Left. Does it have flaws? Of course. But so does every form of education. You don't throw away the internet because there's fake news. You don't ban books because one author wrote nonsense. You learn to filter, to understand, to grow. Porn is no different. When approached with the right mindset, becomes less about indulgence and more about awareness, emotional, psychological, even philosophical awareness. In fact, many people discover their own boundaries through watching, what they're comfortable with, what turns them on, what makes them uncomfortable. That's valuable information, not just for pleasure, but for self-understanding. And when they bring that awareness into real life relationships, communication improves, intimacy deepens, consent becomes clearer, preferences become conversations instead of assumptions. People say porn is fake. Yes, and so is every action movie you loved. No one watches Fast and Furious and assumes they're going to jump cars off skyscrapers. They know it's fantasy. So why can't we give adults the same credit when they watch porn? Why do we assume they're incapable of separating fantasy from reality? Adults can understand that it's curated, performed, and exaggerated and still find value in it. Because here's the real deal. Porn is not just about sex. It's about expression. It's about representation. It's about control. For some, it's the only place they see bodies like there's being desired. For others, it's the only time they feel they can step into their power. For many, it's therapy when therapy is unaffordable. It's comfort in a lonely world. It's a window into confidence they wish they had in real life. But society doesn't want to talk about that. It wants to keep the surface clean while the basement floods. It wants to act like purity is the goal. Even while billions are being made off desire, it wants to shame you for watching while profiting off your curiosity. That's the game. And I'm here to break the board. Let's talk about mental health. Yes, mental health. Porn in moderation can act as a regulator for stress and anxiety. The release of dopamine and oxytocin isn't just about climax. It's about the brain resetting, breathing, feeling something when everything else feels numb. People go through breakups, trauma, isolation. Not everyone has someone to hold them, but they have this. And while it's not perfect, it's something. Something is better than nothing. Even more, porn creates conversations. It opens doors. You'd be surprised how many couples discover new dimensions of their relationship after watching something together. It removes the taboo. It turns awkwardness into curiosity. It builds trust. If handled with openness and respect, it's not a threat to connection. It can be a tool for deeper intimacy. And let's not ignore identity. For countless people questioning their orientation, their preferences, their place in the sexual spectrum, porn is the only map they have. Before they have the words, they have the images. Before they can tell anyone else, they discover things privately. That discovery can be liberating, life-changing, even life-saving. But here comes the critic. What about addiction? What about exploitation? Valid concerns. And they must be addressed. But don't confuse misuse with inherent evil. Anything can become a problem when abused. Alcohol, food, video games, social media. The issue isn't the existence of porn. It's how we teach people to engage with it or fail to teach them at all. We need better conversations. We need sex education that doesn't stop at biology, but includes emotional intelligence, consent, digital literacy. We need to show people how to navigate adult content responsibly, not shame them into secrecy, because shame doesn't prevent behavior. It just drives it underground. And underground is where ignorance breeds. Watching porn doesn't make you broken. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. What matters is your mindset, your intention, your awareness. Your awareness, if you're watching to escape reality, you'll get stuck. But if you're watching to understand, to reflect, to grow, that's a tool. That's a resource. That's something real. People are going to judge. Let them. But understand this: porn is not the enemy. Silence is. Shame is. Denial is. We've been taught to fear what we don't control. But porn, when consumed consciously, is an opportunity for control. Not of others, but of self. Of understanding your own body, mind, desires. This world needs honesty more than it needs purity. It needs safe, consensual outlets for expression. And whether people want to admit it or not, porn has become one of those outlets. It's not the only one. It shouldn't be the only one. But it is one, and it exists for a reason, because people need space. They need answers. They need mirrors. And sometimes they find them in unexpected places. People like to separate tech from taboo, as if the two were ever strangers. But if you really want to talk about the evolution of the internet, the real story, you can't ignore the engine that quietly and sometimes loudly pushed it forward, the adult industry. While politicians debated, while corporations hesitated, while society looked away, porn and adapted, porn led. You want to know why your streaming service loads in seconds, why your payment gateway is smooth and secure, why your video compresses beautifully without losing quality. Thank the people who were solving those problems long before anyone else dared to touch them. Before Netflix was a household name, adult sites were already delivering high quality on-demand video across the globe, not for entertainment's sake, but for survival, because the market demanded it, because consumers were relentless, because if they didn't innovate, they died. Think about it. In the early 2000s, while mainstream media was still obsessed with cable packages and DVD rentals, adult platforms were pioneering online video hosting. They had to deal with high traffic, insane bandwidth, and global distribution. And they did it without a fraction of the recognition. They built the backbone of what we now call content delivery systems, CDNs, adaptive streaming, membership models. They were there first. And payment systems, don't even get started. Banks didn't want to touch adult content. That forced the industry to create ultra secure, encrypted, discrete systems. And once they worked, those systems got adopted by everyone else. Your favorite e-commerce store, your subscription apps, your crowdfunding platforms, they're standing on the bones of adult industry trial and error. The frictionless payment world we live in. It was born from a need to buy without shame, subscribe without judgment, and protect privacy while doing it. Now let's talk about user experience. Mainstream websites didn't always care about UI and UX until porn made it impossible to ignore. You think fast, loading thumbnails, real-time recommendations, and AI-generated search results just happened because someone at a tech company had a eureka moment. No. Those were solutions born from millions of daily users clicking, searching, filtering, navigating massive libraries of content, and demanding more. Demanding better, demanding now. Adult platforms learned to predict behavior before machine learning was a buzzword. They built systems based on deep user patterns, real feedback, and brutally honest analytics. They had no choice. The stakes were different. People don't wait when it comes to desire. If a site buffers, if the categories are confusing, if the layout is clunky, you lose that user instantly. Attention spans vanish, satisfaction drops, loyalty dies. So these platforms iterated fast. They ran A/B tests before your favorite marketing agency even understood what it meant. They were agile before agile became a methodology. Every click mattered. Every second counted. And it's not just tech, it's business models. Freemium, premium, microtransactions, tiered memberships. You didn't learn that from Spotify. You learned it from the digital strip club. The adult industry learned how to monetize attention, how to price exclusivity. I left how to make users feel like insiders, not because it was trendy, but because it was necessary. They were operating in a high-risked, high-stigma world. Traditional investors, nope. Ad revenue, limited. Every dollar had to be earned through pure value, pure innovation, pure hustle. Do you really think live streaming would be what it is today without cam sites? Twitch gets the glory. Zoom got normalized during a pandemic, but adult cam platforms have been building real-time, low-latency video interaction for over a decade with tipping systems, fan interaction, virtual GIFs, private sessions. They were building the infrastructure of digital performance art while Silicon Valley was still chasing likes and social media. Look deeper. The rise of OnlyFans, fan sites, and creator-driven platforms didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened because adult content creators, real people, took control of their audience, their brand, and their income. They pioneered the creator economy before the world even had a name for it. Subscription-based content, paywalls, personalized messages, parasocial dynamics. These aren't TikTok innovations. They're the legacy of a community forced to build its own ecosystem because no one else would build it for them. Let's be honest. Porn is uncomfortable for many, but discomfort doesn't erase impact. If you stripped the adult industry's contributions from the internet, you wouldn't be left with a clean, innocent digital world. You'd be left with a broken one, slower, clunkier, less secure, effed, less profitable. The technologies you rely on daily, they didn't just come from boardrooms. They came from bedrooms, back offices, and battle-tested platforms fighting stigma while solving real problems. And here's the ultimate irony. The very people who dismiss the adult industry, who clutch their pearls at the mention of explicit content, are using the tools that industry made possible. They're watching HD streams, using secure online payment, customizing user journeys, and interacting on creator-first platforms, all without knowing who built it first, who risked everything, who paid the price. Porn isn't just a mirror to human desire. It's a catalyst for digital evolution. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't ask for validation. It builds, it adapts, it thrives in the shadows while the mainstream catches up in the light. Every time you scroll, stream, swiped, or subscribe, you're walking on digital roads paved by those who dared to make adult content work online before anyone else even tried. So let them laugh, let them mock, let them pretend they're clean, sanitized tech world rose from pure motives and noble ambitions. We know better. We know the code was written in need, in fire, in friction. And it still runs beneath the surface, silent and powerful. You want to see what happens when you deny human curiosity. Look around. Look at the shame, the confusion, the double lives, the broken relationships, the people stuck in guilt loops because they were told their natural instincts were dirty. Society didn't just ignore sexual curiosity, it buried it under culture, religion, fear, and silence. But here's the thing about human desire. It doesn't die. It doesn't go away. It just finds darker corners to grow in when it's denied the light. And those corners, that's where the damage happens. That's where people begin to associate sexuality with sin. That's where kids learn that their own bodies are something to hide from. That's where adults carry shame like chains, not because of what they did, but because no one ever told them it was okay to feel. Let me tell you a brutal truth. Curiosity is not the enemy. Suppression is. Curiosity is where learning begins. It's where empathy is born. It's the root of progress. When you shame someone out of exploring themselves, when you tell them their questions are inappropriate, their thoughts are evil, their feelings are wrong, you don't make them pure. You make them silent. And silence is where ignorance breeds. We are raising generations of people who know how to swipe but don't know how to talk, who can Google anything but can't ask their own partner what they like. Why? Because we taught them sex was secret, forbidden, a problem to be solved, not a part of life to be understood. And when they finally break that silence, usually through porn, they're met with more shame, more judgment, more confusion.
Why?
For doing what their biology, psychology, and soul were already urging them to do. This is not a debate about morality. This is about mental health, emotional health, relational health. When someone is denied access to safe, consensual, honest exploration, they don't become better, they become repressed. And repression leads to obsession. The more you tell someone they can't look, the more they want to. The more you pretend sexuality is taboo, the more likely it becomes something they explore recklessly, dangerously, and without guidance. Responsibly consuming adult content gives people that space, that outlet, that mirror. Not all porn is good. Not all porn is healthy. But it's a starting point. It's a digital sandbox where people can begin to ask questions they were never allowed to ask out loud. What do I like? Why does this turn me on? Am I the only one who feels this way? And when they realize they're not alone, when they see diversity, representation, fantasy, consent, it can be healing. Not everything you see in adult content is real, of course. That's not the point. The point is that it's there. It exists. It allows for awareness, and awareness leads to responsibility. Because people who understand themselves, who recognize their own triggers, boundaries, preferences, are less likely to harm others, less likely to seek out destructive behavior, more likely to engage in relationships with honesty, transparency, and empathy. Let me flip the script. The people most at risk of addiction, of abusive behavior, left of boundary violations are often the ones who grew up with silence, not openness, not education, silence. They never had the tools to process their urges, so those urges processed them. They were taught to feel guilt before they even understood what they were feeling guilty for. And guilt doesn't make you better. It just makes you hide deeper. We have to stop confusing ignorance with innocence. They're not the same. You don't protect someone by keeping them in the dark. You don't build character by denying biology. You build it by offering guidance, by creating space to explore safely, reflect consciously, and decide intentionally. Porn, when consumed with awareness, becomes one of those spaces. Not the only one, not the ultimate answer, but a resource, a gateway, a conversation starter. We educate people on everything: food, money, health, fitness. But when it comes to sexuality, we hand out shame and call it virtue. That's not education. That's neglect. That's fear pretending to be morality. And it creates a vacuum where people go looking for answers without any filter, any compass, any real framework to process what they find. They stumble into extremes because no one showed them balance. What if instead we taught people how to view adult content like they'd view any form of media, critically, reflectively, with nuance? What if we normalize conversations about what's realistic and what's performance, what's ethical and what's exploitative, what's a red flag and what's a green light? That kind of literacy doesn't lead to corruption. It leads to power. Real informed power. People fear porn not because of what it is, but because of what it reveals. It reveals the gap between what we say and what we feel, between what we preach and what we want. It breaks the illusion of purity culture. And instead of addressing that gap, we attack the mirror. We punish the reflection. But the truth is still there, waiting to be seen. When someone can watch something, feel something, and own it, that's emotional maturity. When they can say, this is what I'm into, without spiraling into self-loathing, that's progress. When they can distinguish fantasy from consent, performance from connection, kink from coercion, that's responsibility. And none of that happens in silence. It happens through exposure, through dialogue, through experience. The harm is not in curiosity. The harm is in pretending we don't have it. The harm is in punishing people for acting on it without ever preparing them to handle it. That's where trauma begins. That's where shame festers. That's where people turn inward, believing there's something wrong with them for simply being human. We've built a society that teaches kids algebra before consent, that talks about history before it ever touches on pleasure, that treats sexuality like it's dangerous until it becomes dangerous through ignorance. We've got it backwards. We've got it inside out. And the solution isn't censorship, it's consciousness. When you suppress, you don't eliminate, you escalate. But when you guide, when you provide, when you allow room to explore responsibly, to feel without fear, people grow, people evolve, people stop hiding. And when people stop hiding, they start healing